Great Gatsby. I have Scott Fitzgerald. Hold on, I said. I have to leave you here. No, you don't, interposed Tom quickly. Myrtle will be hurt if you don't come up to the apartment, won't you, Myrtle? Come on, she urged. I'll telephone my sister Catherine. She's said to be very beautiful by people who ought to know. Well, I'd like to, but we went down, cutting back again over the park toward the West Hundreds. At 158th Street, the cab stopped at one slice in a long white cake of apartment houses, throwing a regal homecoming glance around the neighborhood. Mrs. Wilson gathered up her dog and her other purchases, and went haughtily in. I'm going to have a McKee's come up, she announced as we rose in the elevator. And of course, I got to call my sister too. The apartment was on the top floor, a small living room, a small dining room, small bedroom, and a bath. The living room was crowded to the doors with a set of tapestried. Furniture entirely too large for it, so that to move about was to stumble continually over scenes of ladies swinging in the gardens of Versailles. The only picture was an over-enlarged photograph, apparently a hen sitting on a blurred rock, looked at from a distance. However, the hen resolved itself into a bonnet, and the countenance of a stout old lady beamed down into the room. Several old copies of Town Tattle lay on the table together with a copy of Seaman called Peter, and some of the small scandal magazines of Broadway. Mrs. Wilson was first concerned with the dog. A reluctant elevator boy went for a box full of straw and some milk, to which he added his own initiative, a tin of large, hard dog biscuits, one of which decomposed apathetically. In a saucer of milk all afternoon. Meanwhile, Tom brought out a bottle of whiskey from a locked burial door. I've been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was afternoon. So everything that happened has a dim, hazy cast over it. Although until after 8 o'clock, the apartment was full of cheerful sun. Sitting on Tom's lap, Mrs. Wilson called several people on the telephone. Then there were no cigarettes, and I went out to buy some at the drugstore on the corner. When I came back, they had both disappeared, so I sat down discreetly in the evening room and read a chapter of Seaman called Peter. Either it was terrible stuff, or the whiskey distorted things, because it didn't make any sense to me. Just as Tom and Myrtle, after the first drink, Mrs. Wilson and I called each other by our first names, reappeared. Tom commenced to arrive at the apartment door. The sister, Catherine, was a slender, worldly girl of about 30, with a solid, sticky bob of red hair and a complexion powdered milky white. Her eyebrows have been plucked and then drawn down again and at a more rakish angle. But the efforts of nature toward the restoration of the old alignment gave a blurred air to her face. When she moved about, there was an incessant clicking as innumerable pottery bracelets jingled up and down upon her arms.
你叫我爸那个诺言昨天那个汉堡。
When she came in with such a preparatory haste, and looked around so possessively at the furniture that I wondered if she lived here. But when I asked her, she laughed immoderately, repeated my question aloud, and told me she lived with a girlfriend at a hotel. Mr. McKee was a pale, feminine man from the flat below. He had just shaved, for there was a white spot of leather on his cheekbone. And he was most respectful in his greeting to everyone in the room. He informed me that he was in the artistic game, and I gathered later that he was a photographer and had made the theme enlargement of Mrs. Wilson's mother, which hovered like an ectoplasm on the wall. His wife was shrill, languid, handsome, and horrible. She told me with pride that her husband had photographed her 127 times since they had been married. Mrs. Wilson had changed her costume some time before, and was now attired in an elaborate afternoon dress of screen-colored chiffon. Which gave out a continual rustle as she swept about the room. With the influence of the dress, her personality had also undergone a change. The intense vitality that had been so remarkable in the garage was converted into impressive hauteur. Her laughter, her gestures, her assertions became more violently affected moment by moment, and as she expanded, the room grew smaller around her until she seemed to be revolving on a noisy, creaking pivot through the smoky air. "My dear," she told her sister in a high, mincing shout, Most of these fellas will cheat you every time. All they think of is money. I had a woman up here last week to to look at my feet when she gave me a bill. She gave me the bill. You you'd have thought she had my appendicitis out. What was the name of the woman? Asked McLean. Mrs. Eberhard. She goes around looking at people's feet in their own homes. I like her dress, remarked Mrs. McKee. I think it's adorable. Mrs. Wilson rejected the compliment by raising her eyebrow in disdain. It's just a crazy little thing, she said. I just slip it on sometimes when I don't care what I look like. But it looks wonderful on you, if you know what I mean, pursued Mrs. McLean. If Chester could only get you in that pose, I think he would make something of it. We all looked in silence at Mrs. Wilson, who removed a strand of hair from over her eyes and looked back at us with a brilliant smile. Mrs. McKee regarded her intently with his head on one side and then moved his head back and forth slowly in front of his face. I should change the light, he said after a moment. I like to bring out a modeling of the gestures, of the features, and I try to get hold of all the back hair. I wouldn't think of changing the light, cried Mrs. McKee. I think it's her husband said shh, and we all looked at the subject again, whereupon Tom Buchanan yawned audibly and got to his feet. You McKees have something to drink, he said. Get some more ice and mineral water. Myrtle before everybody goes to sleep. I told that boy about the ice. Myrtle raised her eyebrows in despair and the shiftlessness of the lower orders. These people, you have to keep after them all the time. She looked at me and laughed pointlessly. Then she flounced over to the dog, kissed it with ecstasy, and swept into the kitchen, implying that a dozen chefs awaited her orders there. I've done some nice things. I've done some nice things out Long Island, asserted Mr. McKee. Tom looked at him blankly. Two of them we have framed downstairs. Two what? Demanded Tom. Two studies. One of them I call Montauk Point, the goals, and the other I call Montauk Point, the sea. The sister, Catherine, sat down beside me on the couch. Do you live down here in Long Island too? She inquired. I lived at West Egg. Really? I was down here at a party about a month ago at a man called Gatsby's. Do you know him? I live next door to him. Well, they said he's a nephew of a cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm's. That's where all his money comes from. Really? She nodded. I'm scared of him and hate to have him get anything on me. The absorbing the information about my neighbor was interrupted by Mrs. McKee's pointing suddenly at Catherine. Chester, I think you could do something with her. She broke out. But Mr. McKee only nodded in a bored way and turned his attention to Tom. I'd like to do more work on Long Island if I could get the entry. All I ask is that they should give me a start. Ask Myrtle, said Tom, breaking into a short shout of laughter as Mrs. Wilson entered with a tray. She'll give you a letter of introduction, won't you, Miss Myrtle? Do what? She asked, startled. You give McKee a letter of introduction to your husband, so he can do some study of him. His lips moved silently for a moment as he invented George B. Wilson, a gasoline pump, or something like that. Catherine leaned close to me and whispered in my ear, "Neither of them can stand the person they're married to, can they?" "Can't stand them." She looked at Myrtle and then at Tom. "What I say is, why go on living with them if they can't stand them? If I was them, and get a divorce and get married to each other right away. Doesn't she like Wilson either?" The answer to this was unexpected. It came from Myrtle, who had overheard the question, and it was violent and obscene. "You see," cried Catherine triumphantly. She lowered her voice again. "It's really his wife that keeping them apart. She's Catholic, and they don't believe in divorce." Daisy was not Catholic, and I was a little shocked at the elaborateness of the lie. When they do get married," continued Catherine, "they're going west to live for a while until it blows over. I had to be more discreet to go to Europe." "Oh, do you like Europe?" she exclaimed, surprisingly. "I just got back from Monte Carlo." "Really? Just last year, I went over there with another girl." "Stay long?" "No, we just went to Monte Carlo and back. We went by way of Marseilles. We had over $1,200 when we started, but we gypped out of it and gypped out of it all in 2 days in the private rooms. We had an awful time getting back, I can tell you. God, how I hated that town. The late afternoon sky bloomed in the window for a moment like the blue honey from the Mediterranean. Then the shrill voice of Mrs. McKee called me back into the room. "I almost made a mistake too," she declared vigorously. "I almost married a little tyke who'd been after me for years. I knew he was below me. Somebody kept saying to me, 'Lucille, that man's way below you.' But if I hadn't met Chester, he'd have got me sure." "Yes, but listen," said Myrtle Wilson, nodding her head up and down. "At least you didn't marry him." "No, I know I didn't." "Well, I married him," said Myrtle ambiguously, "and that's the difference between your case and mine." "Why did you, Myrtle?" demanded Catherine. "Nobody forced you to." Myrtle considered. "Okay, that's for today. So I'll see you guys tomorrow."